Hello there everybody, Samuel Lucas here. Welcome back to the railway. Welcome to another bit of a running session today of recreation. Is that how you say it? Yes it is. So today recreation of running session is to do with the LNER. Now I have heard about quite a few famous trains, sort of like trains that have been made in the past and are either still or are not around today. So like Flying Scotsman, not the locomotive, but the actual train, that's of the coaches and the locomotive sort of thing that's still around, sort of that sort of thing. So yeah, that's what I'm doing today. I'll be recreating those. Although yes, I might not have the correct locomotives or the correct rolling stock. Well, particularly very first one, it doesn't have the correct rolling stock, but actually because none of them exist. But I'll tell you more about that later. Something to do with Hornby. So yeah, I have got quite a few of them ready to go. So let's go meet the first one today. Let's find out. So the first famous train is going to be the Coronation, and the Coronation only survived very shortly from 1937 to 1939. But originally it had a LNER Garter Blue A4, and the only one I actually have is Mallard in the LNER Garter Blue, which was actually one of the engines actually took it around, so that's quite nice. Now originally the Coronation had blue coaches, but I don't have any blue coaches because the Coronation doesn't exist as a model until when Hornby did a latest update on the models at the start of 2022 when they said they were going to be making the Coronation. But instead of using Mallard, they're going to be using the Commonwealth of Austria 4491, if you want to know the number of it. So you never know. It is scheduled as a coach pack, but technically it should be a train pack because it has got a locomotive with the coach plus coaches. So yes, the Coronation. I mean, basically, it's basically another. You could basically say it's another version of the Pullman, but a lost Pullman train, if you want to say it as. But yeah, the Coronation, good locomotive and good coaches. Right, let's go and move on to the next famous train, which is also from the LNER. So the next famous LNER train is going to be the East Anglican. Now, the East Anglican, of course, does sound very LNER, but I've got, as you can see here, I have got an A4 running on it, which the work basically did have A4s running on it, but they used to have the B17s running up and down the line with the East Anglican. They were going to use the A4s, but then decided that they were going to use the latest B17s, but then, they did after a while, after the B17s were going, they did use the A4s after a while, so that's what I have done. I'm using an A4. Starting off from 1937, it still survives today. But obviously, it is not, it is steam, but obviously it uses different locomotives like, I know, Britannia, Bahamas, Clan Line, that sort of thing, so on, so on, so on. So now, after a while, yes, as you know, it was owned by British Railways after LNER fell. Obviously, LNER is now come back to life. So I've got a variety of LNER. Well, it had dining cars and normal passenger coaches on it. So that's what I've done. I got LNER dining coaches and the normal British Railways passenger coaches. So that's the second one done. Let's move on to the number 3 of the famous LNER trains. So the next famous train is going to be the Northern Belle. And Northern Belle was only around for 10 years, but was originally used by a LNER B12. But then after a while, they decided that it wasn't going to be luxurious enough to have a B12, so they went away and replaced by an A3, also known as Flying Scotsman. The A3s were much more powerful than the B12s, but so the B12s were then put on just normal passenger trains, which was quite rude of them to do that to them, go from luxurious to normal. But then when World War II started, the Northern Belt was then scrapped. Properly scrapped, and never came back again. So yeah, it's an extinct famous train. It's quite annoying that. But yeah. Right, let's move on to our next famous LNER train. Quite a good few selection of them. And so the next famous train is a very well known train, is of course the Flying Scotsman. Now, starting off in 1862, it was the fastest express passenger train from London to Edinburgh Waverley. And then after a while it went non-stop, thanks to Flying Scotsman here in 1928. And then in 1934, Flying Scotsman did the unthinkable and did 100 miles per hour non-stop from on the King's Cross to Edinburgh Waverley, and then was broken 4 years later by Mallard, which did 126 miles per hour non-stop from that route. So, Flying Scotsman, yes, famous locomotive and a famous train. Love it, love it. I've also got the train set with it, which I thought, I don't have the right amount of coaches, unfortunately, but one day, you never know, it might come true. Maybe something to do with next year, in February, which is very special to the Flying Scotsman. Yeah. So, my favourite locomotive ever, Flying Scotsman. So, thank you very much, Flying Scotsman, for doing this route yet again. Which last time it's been doing the Flying Scotsman quite a few times. But when it started doing preserved route with Alan Pegler in 1968 was the first time I did that. Ever since then, it's been doing it. Not as often, but occasionally. It's normally towards the end of the year, so sort of December time. It does it. Yes, good old Alan Pegler. So, Flying Scotsman, thank you for that. So let's move on to the next famous train from the LNER. And you can also technically count the British Railways, but I'm just doing LNER fully. Right, let's find out what that famous train will be next. The next famous train is called the Harrogate Pullman, also known as the Harrogate Sunday Pullman, which basically, as you know, has Pullmans. Very obvious. The actual Harrogate Pullman used to have a A3 Pacific, or basically Flying Scotsman technically, but then it only lasted for 5 years, unfortunately. But then in the 1940s, it was then reconnoitred and known as the Harrogate Sunday Pullman, which had a A3 peppercorn like tornado, which I've got here. Yes, so technically this is basically British Railways, but it did start off as an LNER, so that's what I'm doing it for. Obviously Tornado is currently having a very late overhaul because it's taking forever for it to do it, so if you want to see Tornado soon, don't, because it's having an overhaul. Yeah, after it was the name was taken out in 1928, it was then converted to the NMS, which was the Queen of Scots, basically. Yeah, so there we have it, the Harrogate Pullman, or the Harrogate Sunday Pullman, / that, yeah. Right, let's move on to number, what was it? I believe 6, I think we are. I believe so. Right, let's find our next famous LNER train. The next famous train is called the Highlandsman. Now this was set in the Scottish Highlands, and it originally had 2 locomotives, 2 all above the Scottish Highlands, and had dining cars and normal coaches for different classes of people. Starting off in 1927, it only lasted for 12 years, before, as well as World War II, when World War II started, it was then scrapped and never appeared in Scotland ever again. And yes, so there's another famous LNER train. I quite like this one because you've got a double header of 2 famous locomotives at the front. quite a few nice dining cars and ordinary coaches. Yeah. Now might be a time where it's saying I don't want to do this anymore. Only because Flying Scotsman coupling does not work anymore. Anyway, let's move on to the next famous LNER train. First stop this before it all goes disastrous. So the next famous LNER train is of course the Hook Continental. And the Hook Continental started life in 1927, but then ended in 1939. But then it did come back in service in 1945, and after 42 years it was scrapped in 1987. It started off with the A1/A3s, also known as Flying Scotsman we've got here. And then when World War II started, just again, obviously it was scrapped. The idea was scrapped, and it was put away for 6 years until the war ended, which by then it then came out. So then, after 1945, well, the end of World War II happened. Flying Scotsman was painted at wartime black in the LNER, northeastern livery, wartime black, and then as Flying Scotsman was directly painted into British Railways green, it was then put onto sort of more British Railways routes. So then the A1 Peppercorn by I can't remember his name, also known as Tornado class. They took over the services, which is just a bit of struggling around the corner there. But then after 1950, they were then taken over by the Britannia class, which Joshua has one, which I have here, which unfortunately does not run, so I've just had to run Tornado again. Why it's not running is because it's got some connection rod problems, something to do with the fact that the connection rods keep imploding themselves and keep falling apart. Bit annoying, but I have it here on the track in the sidings, waiting for the right moment to get back on the rails. It's a bit annoying it's not running at the moment. Yeah, proper bad connection rod problems, but I'll just put it on the track quickly so you can actually see it. Still missing buffer though, as you can clearly see. Yeah, so that's the Hook Continental train. Right, let's move on to the next famous LNER train. So the next famous train is called the Master Cutler. Now originally it was made in 1946, and funny enough it still runs today. But you probably not what you expected it to be. Now it did start at A3, so a Flying Scotsman, but it was supposed to be British Railways livery because it was put straight into it. But there was actually a locomotive called the Master Cutler, which was 60052 in British Railways blue. And obviously it's been through diesels, and now it is diesel, but it's actually on the Midland Main Line. It goes from Sheffield to Pancras and back, and you probably think, oh, it's probably like one of those like a real diesel, like a Class 47 or something. No, it's not. It's run by a Class 222, Eastman Railway Class 222. You probably think to yourself, really? But yeah, it's run by Class 222 on the Eastman Railway, with the main line now. So yeah. So I've got old Tornado here, or actually young Tornado, 20 years old. Yeah. Master Cutler does not sound like a bad famous train. The name is fine. Yeah, it's quite nice. Right, let's move on to the next famous LNER train. The next famous LNER train is called the Night Scotsman. As you can see, it's quite dark now, and I've got Flying Scotsman, of course, on this train, pulling its normal LNER teaks, well, as in others as well. Also, funny enough, this train was only in the 1930s, just because it was after World War II. Like many others, it was scrapped. Night Scotsman obviously did trains at night time, up and from the usual London King's Cross to Edinburgh Waverley. Yeah, it's sort of like the Flying Scotsman train, but at night time, you could basically say. Only at night time. Yeah. There goes, funding around the track. Love the Flying Scotsman. Right. Let's go on to the next famous LNER train. So the next famous LNER train is called the Queen of Scots. Now, the Queen of Scots, it really had an A4, and it would run up from Glasgow down to King's Cross and back. But what I remember, it kept going up until 1985, where it was then used as the Royal Train. Over temporary reasons, because the coaches were being overhauled for safe reasons, as you know. At a certain point of time in the late 80s, Mallard did actually come back to service and did do the Queen of Scots again, which was quite nice of it to do. But it was put out of service, but it was taken away and put back in the National Rail Museum, and they threw away the keys, unfortunately. So yes, it's quite a nice train to do. Quite nice. Got one of my favourite locomotives with well, probably my favourite coaches of all, currently. I say currently because it might change, you never know. You never know. Right, let's move on to the final three famous LNER trains. So, let's see what they are, and what kind of locomotive and coaches they will have. Let's find out. So the next famous LNER train is going to be the Silver Jubilee. Now the Silver Jubilee started off in 1935, but 4 years later it was then scrapped due to the fact that World War II started, thanks to... I don't feel that... Sorry about that, I had a bit of a cough there. Maybe a bit of cold, never know. But anyway, the Silver Jubilee was pulled by an A4 Pacific. It's funny enough, pulled by the actual steam locomotive Silver Jubilee in the LNER grey. Obviously, as the rest of the locomotives, they were all painted into northeastern wartime black, because as you know, of World War II. Yeah, so it's quite nice to see it going back around again. I mean, last time it was all silver LNER coaches, but I don't have any of those. I don't think there are any of them around. But maybe one day. You never know. Hornby, Backman, Oxford Round, Dapple. Maybe he doesn't decide to do some of those. You never know, really. Right, let's go on to the second of two left. So let's go meet the last two remaining famous trains by LNER. The next famous LNER train, although I have used the exact same setup as the Silver Jubilee, but this is to represent a new train which I've never actually heard before, but it is the West Riding Limited. And the West Riding Limited did have an A4. Unfortunately, it had the Dominion of New Zealand, funny enough, which is the only A4, which is quite lucky, Mallard. But this is British Railways, because it went from 1937 all the way up to 1968, because they said that without an A4, it's nothing, which is a bit sad. It's very rude to say something like that, which British Railways have daring, so if you're still around, I want to kick you up the arse. I know. Apologies if it has offended anyone, but I just have to say it. Yeah, so just one more left, and let's see which locomotive we get, because this is two in a row had a Mallard. I mean, we had quite a lot of Mallard at the start. Could this be a lot of Mallard at the end? Oh, just gonna wait and see. Oh, and also Put down in the comments if you want to, what is your favourite locomotive? I know which one's my favourite. And so the final famous LNER train is the West Riding Pullman. And it first started off in the 1940s. And as you can see here, I have an A3 Peppercorn Tornado pulling its regular Pullmans. So after the A3, original A3s like Flying Scotsman were replaced by the Peppercorn A3s, well, they thought that the Peppercorn A3s were more useful than the A3s, so they put that on there. But unfortunately, in the 1960s, it was then got rid of as steam was dying out, so it was a bit sad to see that go. Very annoying. So that is all the famous LNER trains I have found. I have found. There could be more of them that have not been listed down. But remember, this is like the proper LNER. We're not counting the ones that are nowadays. These are all ones back until when LNER was around, so 1923 to 1948. So, I've got all the Flying Scotsman there. The tornado. The well, you could say a family. Got the two world records and the youngest. So you could say a mother and a father and a child. In this case, it's a very hot family. Get me? Hot because you have to burn the fire. Hot. Nah, you probably didn't get it probably. So with that. Oh, and also before I go, put down in the comments what is your favourite famous train. I'd like to know, because I actually don't know. I was going to say Flying Scotsman train, but I just don't know now. Yeah, so thank you, well, with that question in mind, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next month for some more running sessions. Goodbye everyone.